Hi, everyone. How are you doing? Good. So today I'm going to take you on a journey from marine snails to medicine. And so when you think of snails, or actually, if you're feeling a little sick and you weren't going to be able to make it today, when you have a day when you can't go out and play or you can't go to school, you hope that your mom and dad will come in and give you some medicine to help treat you, right? And so if you were to close your eyes and think about where did that medicine come from, close your eyes, what do you picture? Snails. Now you're going to picture snails, right? So you picture these snails. And these are snails you might see today, because these are garden snails that come out when it's raining, right? And then if you like food, you might see snails like this on a nice, delicious plate. So the snails that I work with are marine snails. So that means we find them in the ocean. And the ocean's full of all kinds of sea life. And snails are usually, they can vary in size from very small to very big. They have a shell, and the animal lives inside of the shell. And when you go to the beach and you're picking up the shells, you'll pick up all kinds of these different shells. But the snails that I work with, they have gone a little bad. They're sort of doing something different. They're hipster snails. They're doing something very, very different from all the other sea creatures, right? And so these snails, I like to refer to them as killer snails. And they're killer snails on a feeding frenzy in the ocean. And you know, the ocean is filled with all kinds of extreme life. And so these snails have taken an extremely different route. So in this first picture, you see this tiny snail. It's like a David and Goliath. It's feeding on the very big bivalve. And so what it's doing, it's drilling a hole, and it can take like a week to drill the hole. Snails are not in a hurry, as you know. And so it'll drill the hole and then suck all of the animal out from inside of the bivalve. These guys, they use their shell like a wrench, and they pry open the bivalve, and then they also will have a really tasty meal. I'll show you a video of these, which are called vampire snails. They suck the blood of fish in the ocean. These snails, they feed on corals. You know, corals are the nice little pretty things that you see underwater if you go scuba diving or snorkeling. And then the snails that we work with are these guys, and they feed on fish, worms, and other snails. And so these snails are found in tropical marine environments all over the world, like you heard from Mark. And everywhere you see a star is where me and my group has been on an expedition with the museum. And in the museum, we've gone to Papua New Guinea, we've been in Panama, and this is where we collect these killer snails. We dive and we snorkel, but we're safe here in the US. Do you know why? Go ahead. It's not a tropical climate. In the US, the waters are too cold for us, especially here in New York. They can get into Baja, California, and the Keys in Florida, but in New York, you're totally safe. No killer snails here, just the edible ones, the tasty ones. And so here's what a vampire snail does. So here you can see it sticks out something we call a proboscis, or a tongue. It attaches its tongue underneath the gill of the fish, and then it's actively sucking the blood of the fish. So it doesn't kill the fish, right? It's just sucking its blood. And so what kind of medicines do you think we could get from an animal like this? We can get blood itself, but we want something a medicine that would deal with blood, right? What do you think? I see a hand. An ant? The fish? Sort of. It's okay. Something like that. So we can find things that would heal and are effective by blood if we were to study these guys. So things that thin your blood, because you see the blood is flowing very easily, and something like an anesthetic, because the fish isn't moving, right? So it's been paralyzed a little bit, so it's not swimming away. So these are some of the things we can find if we study on the venom snails. So, but they're kind of like your Count character. They're friendly. They suck on you a little bit, but they won't kill you. And then these guys are the snails that we work with in our lab. And they're the killer snails that some of them are fatal to humans, but they have a nice twist at the end. So here again, the snail's buried under the sand. This is a tongue, and it's going to sort of inject something into the fish. Whoa. And this is real time. We didn't speed it up, right? And so, wow, I never get tired of seeing this video. All gone. Yay! So isn't that crazy? So here you'll see it again. So the snail, they can eat a fish or a worm about their body size. It's going to inject the fish again. So you see the fish becomes totally stiff, right? Totally, totally stiff. And so you've never seen a fish so stiff, have you? And so it's going to engulf the fish completely again. It has a very big mouth that it can stretch open. And look here, so the fish isn't dead. It tries to recover, but it's too late. No, you're a goner. You're going to be a meal. And so how is it that these very slow-moving snails can eat something as fast as a fish, right? Why are they able to do this? Why are they able to inject something into the fish, cause the fish to go completely stiff, and then not be able to escape? You'll see it again. And it happens very quickly, really fast, right? And so he's going to swallow him whole again. All gone. So inside of the fish are producing something which is called venom, which is very similar to what you find in snakes and scorpions and spiders, right? So you may know the word poison, and so poisonous ivy, or if you drink something that's poisonous in your kitchen sink, your parents are like, don't drink this ever. Or in nature, we have animals that are poisonous. We call these poisonous dart frogs. So a poison is something that you have to touch or drink to make you feel ill, but a venom is something that has to pierce. So the fangs of the snake, or the spike from the scorpion, or the bite from the spider, similar to that, our snails have a piercing tool, which we call venom. And so what happens is the venom goes into the fish, and it's not one thing, it's several things. And then once it hits the fish, there's this massive sort of explosion where everything in the venom fans out into the body of the fish, and essentially they're trying to find something to target that will shut down how the fish normally functions. And so they kind of silence the signals that are actively working inside of the fish. So we say that the venom compounds are involved in cell communication, which is how one cell signals to another. And they can turn off these signals. And in my lab, we're trying to figure out how can we use this venom to turn off signals that are related to pain and cancer. So if I were to pinch your finger, one cell signals another one to the brain, ouch, and then your brain will signal back, move away, she's not a nice person. And so if the fish were to feel that pain signal, it would go into fight or flight mode, and the snail would never get a meal, right? Because it's not like it can put on sneakers and run after the fish, right? So in the same way in our body, we can use certain things that are found in the venom to shut off signals related to pain or cancer. And so when you think, how do you get from venom to medicine, some of you might be like, really? I don't see it. But there's actually a nice twist from this story. So these killer snails, which are doing extreme things in the ocean, like eating fish, when we bring them into the lab, we can turn their venom into medicine. And it's because Mother Nature says, anything you can do, I can do better. And so scientists are trying really hard in the lab to find all these medicines to treat things, but nature also has its own cocktail of stuff that we can use. And she sounds kind of like, dare me. And so all of these creatures that you see here, the Gila monster, the centipede, the snake, and my favorite, of course, the snail, they've all produced a drug that if you go to the doctor, you can get a prescription for and go and buy in the pharmacy. So the Gila monster gives us something for diabetes, like when you have sugar, leveling your sugar. The snake gives us something for high blood pressure. And the snail, the primary thing they've given us so far are painkillers, as I explained, because they shut down the pain signals. And so the way that we collect them is when we go to the beach, traditionally, you see all these beautiful shells. We try to find as many of those beautiful shells as we can. And so it was size and quantity that drove how we would decide which snail to work on. But now we have a better method that we think is much more effective. I like to call it Venomics. And so in Venomics, what we do is we use evolution. We build a family tree of the snails, kind of like how you're related to your mom and your dad and your sister and your brother or your cousins, and we figure out which snail seems to be doing or producing venom that might be better to make into medicine. And so you see the shells all look similar, kind of like how you might look similar to your brother or your mom or your dad, but they all have some different venom inside of them. So once we build the tree, we find a particular snail, and that's what we focus on. So if I were to show you in a video, we build the family tree, we pick our special snail because it seems to have interesting venom or something different about it, and then we investigate all the things that are inside of that venom, and we try to identify one thing that we think might lead to a medicine to treat pain or cancer. And so this is what the snails look like. We have cone snails, terebrids, and taurids. In my lab, we focus mostly on terebrid snails because they're the coolest, right? And then this is what the venom system looks like. So the way that the venom gets delivered to the fish is they have a venom bulb, which is like a heart, used to pump the venom through the venom duct, and then it delivers it into what we call a radula sac. And so all of the things that pierce into the fish, the venom is collected into what we call them harpoons, and then it's delivered out of that tongue thing, which is a proboscis. And so all of the killer snails, or most of them, have this apparatus, but not every single one. So when we build the family tree of snails, everywhere you see black means that it has that venom system, and those are the snails that we want to collect. So by building the family tree, when we go on expedition, we're actually helping conserve the snails in the ocean, because we don't have to collect all of them. We only collect the ones that the black lines have. And so when we investigate what's inside the venom, this is the kind of stuff we find. This is sort of a drawing of how you would represent what's inside of the venom. And this in particular is called TV1. And this we found can turn off the signal for certain cancer cells. And so right now the lab is working on how can we develop TV1 as a medicine for treating certain kinds of cancer. And so when we talk about going from marine snails to medicine, what we mean is we're going to take what's inside of the venom of these really extreme creatures. We're going to investigate how they work inside of fish and worms, and then also inside of mice. And then if everything checks out there, we're going to do further and further experiments to see if it would be possible to make a drug to help treat pain and cancer. And so today, if you come to the demonstration, which is in CRC, as Mark mentioned, we're going to start by helping, you'll go on an expedition sort of and dig up snails and dig up shells, and then you'll try to identify, you'll do a dissection, not of snails, but squid, because these are killer snails and some of them are fatal to humans, but a squid is okay. So you'll dissect out a squid, which also has a venom gland, and then you'll get to figure out which of the things can potentially be used for medicine, and you'll role play. Somebody will be doctor, somebody will be patient, and you'll try to see if you can treat and find a medicine that can be used as a cure. And so next time when you're feeling really, really ill and you look inside your parents' medicine cabinet, I hope that you think about what? Snails, yes. And you think about killer snails, because the killer snails are one way in which you can find some of the drugs inside of the medicine cabinet. and especially the terebrate snails, the ones that we work with. And so here is everyone in the lab that I am working with. These are grad students and postdocs, and this is me because I'm always ready to go to the beach and collect. And then this is a game that we made in collaboration with the American Museum. It's called Killer Snails, Assassins of the Sea. You can get it both at the museum and here. And if you're looking for the game, it's in the information booth. And if you want to come and play a scientist on a quest to find the journey from mollusk to medicine, we're across the way in CRC on the 3rd floor in 306. And with that, I will take some questions if you have any. Thank you.
How many killer snails are there?
So that's a very good question. So of the 3 different kinds of killer snails that I showed you, there are at least 600 species of the cone snail, like 400 species of the terebrids, and over 10,000 species of the taurids. So there are more than 15,000 species of killer snails out in the ocean.
Can it cure any other diseases?
Yet, we haven't treated any of the other diseases other than so far pain, cancer. Actually, there's something in epilepsy. So what's interesting is these venom can work on things that shut down signals. And if you have an epileptic fit where you're kind of going into a seizure, it's because the cells are firing all the time, and they can stop the cells from firing all the time. So there is a drug in the market also for epilepsy.
How do you keep from getting stung when you're collecting samples?
Oh, that's a really good question. And so, like I said, some of these snails are fatal to humans. So when we are diving, they're also not aggressive. So they don't try to attack you. They will actually recoil into the shell if you pick the shell up. So we use very high-tech salad tongs when we pick them up with the salad tongs and we drop them into our dive bucket, and then we bring them up, and so we don't really have to touch them.
Do you make the medicine?
Yes, we do. So we actually synthesize them in the lab, the medicine, and then we use it in all of those experiments to see where and how it works inside of humans. So we can make a synthetic version of what the snail is producing.
If someone gets stung, do you have a cure for it?
No. So there's no anti-venom. There's no cure. So it's very important. So the way we started working on these snails is in the Philippines, a lot of fishermen were dying, and no one knew why. And it was because the snails were getting caught in their fishing nets. And when the fishermen went in to retrieve their catch, the snails were harpooning them with the venom. And at sea, they're really far from a hospital, and the venom works really quickly. So within the minutes to hours, the fishermen would be dead. And so in starting to figure out what's going on there is how we discovered these really extreme killer snails. But there's no venom right now, no.
How do you make the flavors for the medicine?
Flavors?
Yeah, because sometimes when I have medicine, it's grape.
Oh, that's a different kind of chemistry. That's after the medicine is made, sometimes people put special compounds or different chemistry inside of it so that it tastes good for you to go to drink it. Otherwise, it'll taste like nothing, probably. And so you can actually learn how to make ice cream today and how to do tie-dye. And so it's different chemicals that are mixed together that gives the grape flavor. But that doesn't come from the snails. That's an add-on that they do afterwards.
What time of day is best for catching the snails?
Oh, what kind of day is best? Well, actually, the snails live under the ocean, so you can catch them anytime. Oh, you mean daytime or nighttime? Nighttime. Most of the snails are nocturnal, and they come out at night, and that's how we usually do a lot of night diving. That's when we get the best catch. But we can go during the day as well. They're just hidden under the sand more. At night, they come out.
If you step on them, would you get poisoned?
If you step on them, you sort of, either they would just bury further into the sand, and you'd only step on them if you're out at night. There's certain species that live at the shoreline, but most of them are found in the coral reef. but they usually wouldn't attack you. It has to be that you are really grinding them in, and then they would come out and attack you.
How many people does it take to collect them?
How many people? Certainly more than me. So when we go on a collection trip, we have, we have a captain to drive the boat, we have someone to help us with our dive tanks, and then there's usually a crew of between 3 to 15 people who go out and we collect the snails from the reefs.
Where's the most common place that you go to get the snails?
So mostly we go to the Indo-Pacific, which is the Philippines and Vanuatu and Solomon Islands, because that's where we call a biodiversity hotspot. A lot of sea creatures are there in a big abundance. So we go usually to the West Pacific Ocean.
How big can they get?
How big can they get? They'll never get as big as you. They are usually millimeters in size, and so the biggest one I've seen can be up to this big, maybe a centimeter or 2, but not bigger than that.
Why doesn't the venom kill the snail?
Why doesn't the venom? That's also a really great question. So yes, for most venomous creatures, their venom is made to work outside of their body. And so inside of their body, it's sequestered into specific cells that doesn't infect them themselves. But when it's delivered, it certainly causes a lot of damage. Yeah.
How hard is it to catch them?
How hard it takes a lot of work, actually. So the first time I went collecting, I was in Panama, and you saw how beautiful the shells are, and I thought you would just see them when you get down diving or snorkeling, but you don't just see them because they're either buried under the sand if they're at the shore, or when they're in the reef, they're also buried underneath the reef, which are like rocks. And so you actually have to flip the rocks over, and they have trails within the sand, and you look for the trails. So you have to learn how to spot them. But the first time I went collecting, I got 0, because I didn't know what I was looking for, and I thought there would just be these beautiful shells, like you see them in the books, all over the floor, but they weren't like that. So it takes a little bit of effort. You have to get to them, and then you have to sort of dig them up, and then you can find them.
Are we allowed to see you making the medicine?
Oh, you can't visit the lab today to see how we make the stuff that we find in the venom, but you can pretend to when we go to, in the room 306, we'll show you the whole process, sort of. So you can pretend to see how we make the medicine today. Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you all for coming. It'll be fun.